Hey guys, welcome back. It's Monday and it's Monday all day. I'm sitting here today on the Magna Search Group.tv network with my co-host Jason Berard. And I'm Michael Flint.
Big game. Microphone's all off. It's Monday. I'm sure you're on the same boat. Can't even put myself together. It was a great weekend.
Yeah, I hope you all had a great weekend. Today, we're talking about emotional intelligence and how that applies to success in the workplace. Emotional intelligence is based on personality, which is something that doesn't actually change from basically the time that you're young and you're born or whatever. I mean, who you are, your personality, that doesn't change.
Yeah.
You know, what you learn, how you interact, your mannerisms and different things like that are pretty much ingrained in you as a person.
We're talking about that EQ, baby, that EQ, emotional quotient that people have. I think it's one of those things that, I'm trying to think, when I started really hearing about emotional intelligence, probably about 5 to 10 years ago, started really coming to the forefront. But we hear it more and more mainstream right now, especially in organizations. Companies are about 80% saying personality is what's really separating great candidates apart.
Yep.
In front of culture fit and in front of experience, having that emotional quotient, especially in leadership roles. And I think it's so important in today's working landscape and competitive landscape.
Well, it's the glue. When you really think about an organization, people that stand out, like in terms of how dynamic they are and how they pull people together. A lot of that has to do with the energy and enthusiasm that comes with who they are as an individual.
Yeah, like what is it about a leader that has great emotional intelligence? What separates them? Like what is it that makes them emotionally intelligent?
Well, I guess the first thing is they're willing to delay gratification. They're not somebody that needs to get recognized immediately for the work that they've done. They're more kind of a team player, and they're okay, with taking their accolades at the end of the game, as opposed to, saying, "Hey, it's me, it's
reward me, pat me on the back," sort of thing, right?
Yeah, they don't need that. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things.
From my experience in people that have really, accelerated that emotional quotient or just really pleasant to be around is, that they can tolerate the conflict that happens in an organization or with a client or everything like that. For me, when I first got into this, high level corporate relationship, at a pretty young age, I think I learned that very quickly, like how to handle those conflicts. And I think that having that strong emotional presence of knowing yourself and not getting, not feeling like you're drowning in a conflict is very important. I think some of the best leaders can not only mitigate that from a client perspective, but also from within an organization. And that's ultimately what I think sets a lot of people apart, right? Like if there's a conflict in the room, you rely on that leader to be able to kind of squash it, or not even squash it, but even use it for growth, right? Use it for fuel.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that as well, especially because sometimes conflict is driven by miscommunication and just misinterpreting, maybe what's happening within a room. So that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
I think another great skill, for somebody that has high emotional intelligence is their ability to focus. There's been some examples, for example, of pilots that may be getting in trouble because something's going wrong with the plane, and the focus needs to be on flying the ship, not looking for the problem.
Yeah, looking at the vision versus the strategy sometimes, right?
Yeah. You need to kind of you need to focus on what needs to be done to get you from point A to point B, and not really get stuck in the minutia of what's going wrong. Because as long as you're moving in the right direction, things tend to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and I think also touching on that point, and the focus is a lot of the people that are very adept in emotional intelligence are incredibly courageous, and I think that is in 2 points. One, I think from an accountability perspective, they're not afraid to say that they made the mistake. And just from a general, fear basis, they're not afraid to ask the question that might be dumb. They look at fear as, face everything and rise versus an actual, go the other way. They look at fear as an acronym. There's a little cheesy little acronym, face everything and rise. And I think that when you have someone that shows that courage, it resonates with people within a room that, especially when you're in a rapidly growing company, you have to have that courage because it is, uncharted territory. But at the end of the day, you only become a skilled sailor by going through the tough waters, right? Not the easy ones.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Another good sign of strong emotional intelligence is you're able to check your ego at the door. Listen, if you're a top performer, you're going to have a little bit of swagger to yourself anyway. So, that kind of comes with the territory, but you need to be able to hold it in check, and it can't really kind of rule your thought process. It can't take over a conversation, and it certainly can't take over a team environment, because if you put yourself really above everyone else, or make that your own self-interest a higher priority than the bigger picture, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and I think alluding to that point as well is like they're never satisfied, right? They're always pushing for greatness, and that comes from an individual, contributor to someone who has a team that they're really pushing the boundaries. And if you're an owner of a company, some of the best CEOs in the world are some of the most emotionally intelligent people.
Yep.
And they're the ones that can definitely lead people from the front. And also, someone who can never take that satisfaction, right? Never take their foot off the gas, and make sure that they're the driving force that sort of brings people along, right?
Yep. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I think another characteristic that goes hand in foot with being a leader is when they see a problem, they're a fixer. They're not somebody that kind of walks by something that's broken. Whether that's a pane of glass that needs some plastic put up, a sticky drawer desk, or someone that's maybe struggling with some sales calls and needs some refinement on their pitch.
Yep.
They're able to give insight, positive reinforcement with respect to how they critique any particular situation.
Yep.
And move things forward because they recognize that again, teamwork is going to get them to the end of the day.
Yeah, I think like I alluded to the point a little bit earlier, but that accountability aspect of it's my fault. I think some of the greatest leaders as well is, even if it's not their fault, they still shoulder that blame. If it's an outside party's fault or someone within the team, they still take the blame because they're a part of it.
Yep.
And I think shouldering that and using that again as fuel for your team and yourself is something that a lot of successful leaders do. And it's something that people resonate towards, right? Like the average person, most people will not take that blame as the potential outcomes could be, a little bit dreadful,
Yep.
or they're a bit scared of what might happen. But the people that are the most, outstanding leaders are the ones that are not afraid of doing it and not afraid of the consequences. And mistakes are going to happen, failures are going to happen. And as long as you learn, they're always going to come out to be successful in the end.
Yep, I'd agree with that 100% as well. I think if you also took a show of hands in any healthy organization, if there's going to be a popularity contest, people with high emotional intelligence are the ones that are the most well-liked by the diverse range of people within your organization. Introvert, extrovert, anyone from the CEO level all the way through down to your administration staff. People, if you're a likable person, people like you, and that makes you a very marketable person in terms of the context of being the glue, and in many ways the pulse of an organization.
And the big thing about that is there's two folds. One is those are the type of people that can neutralize toxicity.
Yes.
So like surrounds like. When it comes to people, it's not like batteries, or it's not opposites attract. If someone who is marketable and is likable within an organization, that brings in more people that are similar to that.
They can diffuse.
And it's those people with different viewpoints, but also who share the same values and the same personalities and same emotional quotient that can really drive an organization forward. And what we love about those kind of candidates is they're very marketable for us as well. When they have those high EQ, sort of personality types that we look for, and that a lot of organizations look for. They're out there, and I think that one of the pieces of advice that I always have is just like IQ that can get improved on by skill-based learning and learning more. EQ is something that you can work on, right? You read books,
refine, refine your skills,
self-reflect, be self-aware, always learn, follow people who have been successful in that space, and learn how they've done things the way that they've done. We hear so many stories of very successful leaders having different management styles, from the tyrant Steve Jobs, which I actually don't think was the case, but there's so many stories there, or Jeff Bezos at Amazon.
The common denominator is they all grow. And they all expect to grow.
Exactly.
And they want to be better tomorrow than they are
yesterday. We can
yesterday.
never truly understand of what it's like to be them in their situation.
True.
But there's so many resources out there to increase your emotional quotient. And just like I said, 80% of employers, and we agree with this, is that the thing that's setting great candidates apart is that personality.
Yeah.
Which ties into culture fit. Like culture fit is part of it, but if they have the right personality, that could be a reflection of the culture. So that's going to be number one. And I think that if you are a candidate looking for that next opportunity, just remember to bring these aspects to that meeting, that you are that person who's very emotionally aware and has a strong emotional quotient.
And let your personality shine.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing.
Always be you.
Yeah, we're no longer defined by degrees and working experience, right? It's a much different world. It's a much different game coming into 2016, and some of the best people are going to be separated by the personality.
Sure, absolutely.
We see it across 100%. The board. It's the big game. Let you close this one out. It's your show, so.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's Monday. It's Monday all day. Welcome to the big game. We are on MagnaSearchGroup.tv. We're blowing up. We're on iTunes. We're on SoundCloud. We're on a whole bunch of other things that I can't always remember on the closing pitch. We'll see you next week. Thanks for coming.
We're blowing up.